2025 has seen the release of some amazing running shoes from some of the best brands out there, and I've managed to try a fair few pairs of those shoes myself. So in today's video, I will tell you which shoes are good and which shoes are not so good. And as someone that does around 100 kilometers of running each and every week, I feel confident in saying I've thoroughly tested each of the upcoming shoes. Now, to judge these shoes, I've chosen the following metrics, and I'll give you my verdict on which shoe I think is the winner, and there is a clear winner. I'll also add that there are a couple of bestsellers in here from last year. And before I start, I want to hear from you what your favorite shoe has been from this year. So leave a comment down below and let me know what you think is the best shoe that's been released in 2025. So let's dive straight into it then, and starting off pretty strongly with the Adidas Adizero Evo SL, such a popular shoe. Well, what's the purpose of this shoe? Well, according to Adidas, the Evo SL is meant to be a jack of all trades running shoe. It's ideal for daily training as well as speed workouts and potentially even some racing in there too. Now, I've got a slightly different take on this, but before we get into all of that, the facts and figures are on the screen now. Now, at £130, it's certainly at the lower end of the daily trainer price range. And I'll be honest with you, I did buy this on Vinted, brand new, for just under £100. So that was a good bargain for me. Now, I've run over 200 kilometers in this shoe and it's held up incredibly well with absolutely no signs of visual deterioration. And its current performance is similar to when I first purchased this shoe. Now, as mentioned, this shoe is marked as a daily trainer, and I must admit, I have been using it in a slightly different way to that. My idea of a daily trainer is a comfortable shoe that allows you to run without thought. Now, the Evo SL has a generous stack across a relatively narrow outsole, which for me provided some instability when I was running at those easier paces. For easier running, I prefer a much wider sole. The Evo SL felt a touch firm too, and with the narrow arch, I couldn't really enjoy my easier runs. So I've not adopted this shoe as such on my easier running days, but I've been testing out quite a lot at the moment for both speed sessions and in fact on my longer runs, and I must admit I've been quite impressed with this shoe. This shoe uses only light strike foam, which is the same stuff that you see in the top of the range shoe, which is probably why the shoe excels at those faster paces. Now, in terms of the fit, it was actually widely reported that Adidas had rectified some of their well-known sizing issues, like the ones that I experienced in the Pro 3 model. But to be honest, I think I should have still gone for at least a half size up. The toe box felt a touch tight. For me though, it's a good option for track sessions. Being relatively lightweight and without a carbon plate, you can really push those paces without having to rely too much on the carbon plate getting you up to those top end speeds. Now, it's certainly a shoe that can handle the longer runs as well. I've ran up to 2 hours without any major concern, maybe a slight bit of rubbing towards the end, but all pretty good. Now, on screen now is my overall rating of the shoe, and if you were looking for a one shoe to do the lot, then you wouldn't go too far wrong with this one. With that £130 price point, Adidas really do have a superb shoe on their hands. It's well and truly in my rotation, and I do look forward to using it again. Okay, so moving on to New Balance then, and their Fresh Foam 1080 version 14. Now, I bought this shoe at the start of this year after a flurry of, let's call them influencers, were saying that it was one of the most comfiest shoes on the market. So I thought I'd give it a good go. All the facts and figures are on the screen now, and the most notable aspect about this shoe is, of course, the extreme level of comfort that it does offer. The initial step-in feel of the version 14 is soft and protective, I would say. It's a winner for those easy recovery runs without doubt, and it's unlike that Adidas Evo SL. This shoe is an easy run shoe, and I would say it's probably limited to that only. Now, if you compare this to the version 13, the brand has increased the stiffness ever so slightly in the forefoot to help with the toe off. Not really noticed too much of a difference, but I attempted a full week of training in this shoe, including a track session, a longer run and a tempo run, and I must admit this shoe was utterly hopeless for a full week of training. I do not recommend it. I've made a full video of that one if you want to see it, but in summary, those faster paces were pretty much impossible to be able to enjoy. Now, I had a lot of heat building up on the shoe and I felt like I was running on sand, and when I attempted to run my half marathon pace, it just wasn't enjoyable whatsoever. That being said, I don't want to dwell on too much what this shoe can't do. Let's focus on what it actually can do, and there is quite a lot. Now, there is a marshmallow-like kind of feel on the underfoot, which if you like me and you like a softer ride for easy days, then you will absolutely love this shoe. Now, I've ran over 450 kilometers in this shoe, and whilst it isn't quite as snappy as what it was when I first bought it, it's by no means gone flat. Now, my 64-year-old dad absolutely loves this shoe, so much so he bought the same pair twice. Now, I do think the colorways are relatively bland in this shoe and quite uninspiring, but that aside, the fresh foam does a fantastic job of really looking after those legs, those tired legs when you need them, so you can possibly excuse some of those average colorways. Now, on screen is my rating, and essentially to summarize, the fresh foam 1080 version 14 is more of a one-trick pony as opposed to a jack of all trades, but it certainly holds its own as one of the best easy day and recovery run shoes on the market. Okay, moving on to arguably one of the most hype shoes of all time, the ASICS Superblast 2. The ASICS Superblast 2 is a non-plated super trainer that is incredibly lightweight. All the stats are on screen now, and this is a shoe that I have so much time for, and in fact, my current pair are very close to hitting that 1,000 kilometer mark, and they are still going strong. So let's begin with a little bit of a negative though, and the price point. And at £200 here in the UK, it's very expensive for a non-race legal shoe. But the caveat to all of that is its incredible durability. With mine coming towards the 1,000 kilometer mark, you'd argue that pound per mile, it could be considered one of the cheapest shoes out there. Seriously, this is the most durable shoe that I have ever bought. Now, in terms of its comfort, I was incredibly surprised at just how roomy yet well fitted this shoe is. A solid lacing structure in here and incredible grip on the outsole, which I've tested on both grass and in the wet. There are several reasons why this shoe can be considered the greatest of all time, but I think it's the sheer comfort at all paces is what really makes it stand out above all. So I run my tempo sessions in this shoe, often clocking north of 25 kilometers in each of these sessions. But equally, if I'm just wanting an easy plodding shoe, this does that effortlessly as well. I've heard this described as the holiday shoe, in that if you're looking to take one shoe abroad to run in, then it covers all bases, and I'd certainly agree with that statement. So with it reaching that 1,000 kilometer landmark, you'd have thought that it would be entering the final phase of its journey, but I genuinely think that this shoe has got so much more to offer. Whilst it's obviously not quite as fresh as what it once was, there is still so much more I can get out of this shoe. And again, just to reiterate, that is a massive reason why it is such a strong shoe. It's still my go-to for our tempo sessions. I'm often clocking 3 minutes per kilometer in this shoe as well. We're doing some of those reps, so it's absolutely not scared of picking the pace up as well. So on screen is my verdict, of course dominated by its durability. One point I would mention though is its availability, and that has been slightly disappointing in my opinion. For such a popular shoe, I had to go abroad to buy this shoe, and I did get this when I was in Dubai because it had completely sold out here in the UK. But by all accounts, there is a restock available, so maybe I've got to get myself a second pair when this shoe gets to the 1,500 kilometer mark. So to summarize then, if you're happy to invest heavily in a shoe, then you will really not be disappointed by this absolute bestseller. So now we're on to one of Nike's releases from this year, the Vomero 18, a shoe that left me slightly puzzled. The Vomero 18 sits inside Nike's new 3-tier lineup, with the Vomero 18 being the icon model, and at £135 it's actually reduced in price from its previous model, the Vomero 17. All the facts and figures are on screen now, but ultimately this shoe really shouldn't be advertised as a versatile running shoe. Whilst it is one of the comfiest shoes that I have bought, I bought it to run tempo reps as well as my easier recovery days. Now there is so much padding and thick material inside this shoe that it makes it so warm to run in at those faster paces. I found there to be a risk of blistering, which was a bit of a concern early on. That being said, it does feel a lot lighter than its actual weight, and it is quite a heavy shoe. Now the Vomero 18 comes into its own when your legs are heavy and you need a max cushion shoe, and it does feel like a max cushion shoe. It feels completely different to something like the Adidas Evo SL, and its wide outsole outsole makes it an ideal easy run shoe. When I run easy, I don't really want to have to think about running. And that's exactly what you don't have to do in this shoe. And you do have to do that in the Evo SL. Now, I don't trust the narrow arch in that shoe, but the Nike Vomero, however, is cruisy and effortless over those easier miles. I mean effortless because it really is. The colorways too are quite funky, but they work. Now, they use a combination of their two main foam lines, the React X and the Zoom X foam. The React X being their more durable, bulkier foam, and their Zoom X foam being their more responsive race day foam, the sort of stuff you see in the Alphafly or in the Vaporfly model. Now, for a shoe that doesn't work at faster reps, I'm still a little unsure why they've added that faster Zoom X foam. So on screen now is my rating, but overall the Nike Vomero 18 certainly is a one-dimensional shoe, but this isn't necessarily a bad thing. A perfect option for those easier runs, and in all fairness, it does feel an awful lot lighter underfoot than what the scales would say. With 200 miles on the board, it's held together rather nicely, and the bouncy ride really does look after you rather well. Okay, now the cheapest shoe that I purchased in 2025 was the Under Armour Flow Velocity Elite. I needed to buy something cheap for my summer grass sessions. I wanted a plated shoe, but as you know, plated shoes often come at quite a premium. So when I picked this up for £105, I was absolutely fascinated to know how this shoe would get on. So let's start with the ride then, and it's not the snappiest of rides, and interestingly, it's almost silent on the tarmac. It's really comfy. In fact, I'd probably go as far as saying it's the comfiest race day shoe that I own. That's not to say I would race in it though. It's soft underfoot, which probably wouldn't work for me in a race distance, but to have a nice balance of speed and comfort for training is pretty good. Now, the colorways too, Under Armour have this kind of blend pattern going on, which I am a fan of. They release a lot of funky designs too, so you're never short of options if you're looking for something just a little bit different. Now, admittedly, a lot of my running in this shoe has been done in the colder winter months and on grass, so the foam might be holding up slightly better than if I were to be utilizing it as a road running shoe. But again, the shoe has been brilliant, and if you're wanting to try a plated shoe but a little bit nervous about the feel of it or the overall cost, then this could be quite a good option for you. Under Armour are not really a major player in the running shoe game, but I've been pleasantly surprised at the Flow Velocity Elite. My verdict is now on the screen, and I would stress that it's rare to see such a low price point for a shoe of this kind. And whilst I don't use this shoe much anymore, it will be the first shoe that I do turn to in heavy rain or in icy conditions. The next shoe is another popular shoe, the On Cloud Boom Strike. Now, I've only tested this for a very brief period, and whilst the footage you're seeing on screen now is me wearing them, this isn't actually the pair that I tested. I mention this because, as you see with the pair on screen, the back of this shoe has been cut out to reduce rubbing on the ankles. Now, I have two very fast friends who run in this shoe, and they have both interestingly said that the shoe, whilst being very fast, caused them a lot of discomfort around the ankles. So Dylan, who runs in this shoe, he runs a 14:08 5K. He's used this to race in, as does my friend Jake, who's a 13:35K runner, and they both have had issues with heel blistering. Now, my experiences were a little bit different, most likely because I didn't choose to race in this shoe, but there's no denying that this is an extremely fast shoe, and if you can get past the heel issue, then you might enjoy this one. The shoe features a very unique insole design, incorporating a thick removable layer of Helion HF foam known as the bounce board, which sits directly on top of the carbon plate. This design provides additional cushioning, especially in the forefoot area. Now, most super shoes seem to be optimized for specific paces. Now, during my testing, I found that the Cloud Boom Strike had a much larger sweet spot than probably most other performance shoes, and it performed quite well across a wide range of paces. Now, unlike the Alphafly 3, I would happily warm up in the On Cloud Boom Strike because it just feels a little bit easier at those easier paces. With the Alphafly 3, I literally have to put on with 10 minutes before a race because I don't want to warm up in that shoe at all. It's horrible to run slow in it. Overall, I think advanced and intermediate runners who like an extremely well-cushioned shoe with a pretty stiff sole should actually enjoy the Cloud Boom Strike. But I think this is going to be a really good shoe for half marathon, and potentially a 10K distance as well. Now, I've only run 45K in this shoe, but overall I was pretty impressed with this seriously fast shoe. Now, the final shoe wasn't actually released this year, but in my opinion, it remains the best super shoe that's available out there, so it's well worth mention. And while super shoes are personal preference, I believe the Nike Alphafly 3 remains the best in class for longer race distances. Now, I've deliberated over which is better out of the Alphafly and the Vaporfly, but ultimately when running a 10K or longer, the Alphafly for me just edges it. Now, the Vaporfly 3, however, is cheaper, lighter, more comfortable and has a smoother ride, but in my opinion, Nike really redeemed themselves heavily with the Alphafly 3 model. They finally unified the bottom of the shoe, which improves the transition of the shoe overall, which makes a notable difference, and the less prominent arch makes it more bearable for racing in it. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not a comfortable shoe, but I'm okay with this because my race day shoe needs to prioritize performance above anything else. And if it's at the detriment to a little bit of comfort, then I won't really be losing any sleep. Now, I've tried the Adidas Pro Series, the Saucony Endorphin Elite Series, and the ASICS S4, but none come close, in my opinion, to the Alphafly. I may be slightly biased as my half marathon personal best was in the Alphafly 3, but I just found the rhythm so easy to hit with this shoe. The new Atom Knit 3.0 upper is a vast improvement over their previous version, with the heel lockdown issue being addressed. The padding on the inside of the heel counter is plumper, I would say, and foot lockdown is now superb for me. Now, the Alphafly 3 doesn't stand out for any single feature. It's not exceptionally bouncy, it's not exceptionally light or aggressive or aggressively rockered. Instead, its strength lies in delivering a well-balanced experience, a plush, stable ride that feels both smooth and responsive. It's genuinely a true all-rounder, where the overall performance exceeds the sum of its individual parts. It's my absolute go-to half marathon shoe, and I have full confidence in my racing ability with it on my feet. Now, something I'm always on the lookout is for the next best running shoe, and I'm currently considering the ASICS Mega Blast and the ASICS Sonic Blast, as well as the Nike Vomero Premium. I've made a video on what are the next best running shoes, so if you want to watch that, click the link in the video here. And I'm also fascinated to hear what you guys think are the best running shoes from this year. Let me know what you think the best running shoe that's been released from this year is in the comments down below. That's all for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.